Hello, everyone! Welcome back to episode 5 of my Session Storytime series. I finally got around to making this. Woo! Everyone is surprised. Buckle up, folks, because this one is a doozy, and a pretty fucking long doozy at that. We've got a lot of stuff to get through, so let's hop into it, shall we? Last episode, a lot of shit happened. Our strange buddy Merlin got possessed by a chaos goddess, I resurrected King Norville, Syl and I defeated Mickey J in a dance battle because, he was there for some reason. Merlin fucking exploded, and Syl got possessed in his stead voluntarily because none of us know what goes on in that pretty little head of his. It was a lot, and shit does not slow down in this episode, considering what we woke up to. I cannot stress to you guys how nice it would have been to have had a nice, peaceful morning after all of that. Within the past couple of days, I'd witnessed my first murder, resurrected my first person, saw someone explode, learned that deities exist, and watched my new bestie get possessed by one. By the moons. It was exhausting. So imagine my delight when I roll over, ready to greet my beloved buddy Sylvaeus, and someone's trying to either stab him or tie him up, whichever's easiest. Pleasant way to start your day, am I right? Yeah. As fast as my body would go, I jumped up to rush to his aid, and as it turns out, sometimes prank spells are very effective. I never would have guessed that spell of make your friends vomit uncontrollably would have been a valid battle strategy, but considering I never used it much as a kid, I at least got some use out of it at that moment. The battle was over pretty quickly after that. The intruder stumbled around and still tried to fight, but it was just a matter of avoiding the sharp end of the dagger at that point, and we used the intruder's own rope to tie them up, sitting their silly ass right down in the corner and lighting up a lamp to see who was after us now. And, it was Tiffany, or John. The one with the white hair, the one that didn't murder the king, but totally probably did a bunch of other horrible things too. Suddenly, I felt a lot less bad about making her throw up everywhere, although I really didn't envy the tavern staff that would have to clean it later. But wait, in that moment, an idea struck me. What if she had something useful? We needed to bring the king's killer to justice anyways, so what if she had, some sort of clue as to where we could find him? They were obviously connected, as is evident by the fact that they'd been using each other's names as a cover-up. Whether she was an assassin too or not, we didn't exactly know, but it was worth a shot. So we maybe totally rummaged through all her pockets and stuff. I mean, we didn't rob her, I swear, we just, wanted to borrow her information. Just to find the king's killer, and put them both in prison. Forever. Anyways, we went through her shit, and as luck would have it, in one of her pockets we found a little book, bound with black leather with no writing on the cover to be seen. Just an inconspicuous, pocket-sized black book. But when I cracked it open, what we found would change the course of our lives forever, though we didn't know it. Flipping through the pages, they were all blank, not a scrap of writing to be seen on any of them. Page after page we flipped through, once, twice, even 3 times, and I was confused, to say the least. What would someone carry around a tiny blank book for? But then, as if the ink was seeping through from the back of the page, words began to appear. I can't even remember what the writing said, it's been so long. Something along the lines of, "Mission go smoothly," or some shit like that. But somewhere deep down, something just clicked. Holy shit! This was some sort of magic booklet so they could communicate with each other. And if they were close enough to warrant communication between the two of them, then maybe, just maybe, he'd care enough to come save her if we held her hostage. Fight fire with fire, I guess? Become a criminal to take down the criminal? You gotta do what you gotta do, man. So, without skipping a beat, I grabbed the quill and the little vial of ink that we found in her pockets as well, turned to a blank page, and began to write. Dear Tiffany, do come to the tavern. I will certainly arrange for some drinks for us, as it has been quite a while since we've talked last. You certainly are a tough one to find. If you are concerned about my possession of this book, I assure you that John is safe and sound, though she was quite feisty and I did have to subdue her. Looking forward to hearing from you, Lepidoptera. And then we waited. And waited. And then we waited some more, surprisingly enough. Quite a few hours passed by with no response, not in the book, nor in the form of him, breaking through the window or something to save his accomplice. So by midday, I had written to him once more. Dear Tiffany, please respond soon. John has made quite a ruckus, which has resulted in her falling dreadfully ill. She will be all right, but if her vomit is any indication, she does not feel well. Thank you in advance, Lepidoptera. Yeah, there we go. Make him feel guilty. Make him feel like garbage because his friend is sick and nasty and, oh god, it's kind of everywhere, and I really wish I'd picked a different spell because we've been sitting in this room all day and it's getting warm and, oh boy, can somebody open a window in here? Anyways, I wrote, we waited, and we continued to wait. And eventually the sun began to set, and we still waited some more, and eventually we were just honestly kind of fucking tired. So we went and paid the tavern keeper for another night in the room, locked the doors, double-checked that we locked the windows, even went as far as to put all the weapons on the opposite side of the room from John so that she couldn't get a hold of them and free herself or kill us or something. Actually, that's not going very far at all. That's probably pretty reasonable. With all of our bases covered, Syl, Charles, and I— oh, yeah, Charles is still here, by the way. Anyways, we settled back down and went to sleep for the night, feeling somewhat defeated that our plan hadn't worked. Well, I felt a little defeated. Syl didn't seem to be too broken up about it, but he never really seems super down about anything, so it's kind of to be expected. Even with a day of getting nearly kidnapped and sitting in a room full of vomit, he's still a ray of sunshine and a breath of fresh air. God, I love that guy. Anyways, we woke up just about as pleasantly as one could expect given the circumstances, which is to say, not at all. Again. Instead of what we'd expected, though, which was for John to find a way out of her restraints and try to kill us, instead we were met with the sight of two moonlit figures, having shattered the entire window to get in, which made me feel pretty fucking dumb for double-checking it was locked because they just went and broke it. Fuckers. However, this time, they weren't after us. It's probably for the best that they weren't, because all the weapons, including my crystal skull, were all the way across the room, right where they'd busted in, so I had pretty much no way to defend myself without my magic. I think Syl still could have done something, probably, but they were so quick anyways that it didn't even matter. Within what felt like mere moments, the two figures had rushed towards us, but bolted straight past, grabbing a writhing, resistant John, whose cries were muffled by Syl's spare clothes that we used as a gag so she'd stop swearing at us. I'm still not actually sure if she was crying for help or swearing at us more. Regardless of her muffled potential pleas and/or vulgarity, the two figures swiftly hopped back out the window, somehow wrangling John out with them, and jumped in the back of a horse-drawn cart, speeding off down the road and into the night. Holy fucking shit. The kidnapper has become the kidnappee. Okay, so this was not ideal, especially because we were still waiting on Tiffany to come pick up his foul-mouthed companion, even though it looked like he would never turn up. Even if he did never turn up, she was sort of our only lead, and without her, we didn't really have much of a way to find him. And now that she was gone, we couldn't even harass the answers out of her. Turns out, we didn't really even need her after all, because almost as soon as we'd started to recover from the shock of that whole encounter, the door to our room opened, and by the moons, I knew I should have put a fucking chair under the door handle, because lo and behold, there stood the man, the myth, the murderer, the apparently lockpicker himself, Tiffany. He ignored us entirely, though, instead looking around the room in a frantic manner, before rushing to the broken window and peering out of it, staring off at the horse-drawn cart that was quickly becoming a speck in the distance.
You fucking idiots! That was my sister! God damn it, they're gonna kill her! They're literally gonna fucking kill her because of you two fuckheads!
Whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean they're gonna kill her? It's not our fault you didn't show up sooner. I literally wrote to you 2 times and waited all day.
Of course I didn't fucking show up, because you wrote our second in command!
Oh, shit. Okay, well, not exactly what I'd intended. As it turns out, if you turn the pages in that little book, you you can message, like, the entire Assassin's Guild. Or at least anyone important enough to have a book of their own. And I'd turn the page right to the Assassin Guild's second-in-command, whoever the fuck that was, and apparently they were displeased enough with John's failure to accomplish her mission that they sent some grunts specifically to grab her and take her back for adequate punishment. Which was apparently death, because if you're weak enough to get captured, then you're not strong enough to be an assassin, which is super fucked up. In this moment, as I watched this literal murderer have what looked to be an entire-ass nervous breakdown in front of me, I felt something. I looked at him, and I didn't just see a killer. Okay, sure, I saw that too, but Sir Frederick had ordered the execution of several prisoners just to save face earlier. Did that not make him a murderer too? Was the blood of those people not on his hands? Who knows how many prisoners had met their demise at his command? And yet, I couldn't bring myself to believe that Sir Frederick, who cared so deeply for King Norval, who spoke up and vouched for the innocence of my friends and I, could be entirely evil. And in this moment, I couldn't bring myself to believe that Tiffany was, either. Instead of a cold-blooded murderer, I saw someone panicked and distressed over the loss of his loved one. I saw someone who clearly held a lot of love in his heart for his sister, who ran straight to the people who sought to put him behind bars just to see if there was any chance he could still save her. And in that moment, I realized that if I didn't step in to help, I would never be able to live with myself. Tiffany may be a killer, but I was not, and I refused to have John's blood on my hands without at least trying to prevent it. So, yeah, I don't know why the hell Syl and Charles agreed to help me, but I told Tiffany that I would help him get his sister back, and we added a literal murderer to our little ragtag group. Yay! He seemed to pull himself together a bit when we told him that we'd help him get her back, and we all put our heads together to start formulating a game plan. Tiffany was surprisingly cooperative in telling us what we needed to know to get his sister back. The guild was located in a place called Ontario, which lay right across this huge mountain range that split the continent in half called the Grand Divide. Someone, either Tiffany or Charles, I can't recall, whipped out a map and we started planning. First, we needed to get enough money to be able to afford an airship across the Grand Divide, and we needed to make our way to Steamtopia, where the airships actually are. Then, after we make it to the other side, we needed to make our way through the thick forest that surrounds Ontario, which is easier said than done. You see, this forest is no ordinary forest. Rather, it's a place that has been half-shifted into the plane of the Feywilds as a countermeasure against some event called the Cataclysm and other stuff. With a plan in place, we set out that very same day. First on the agenda, get money. Now, Syl and I were a little lost on how exactly to do that. You know, new world, new whatever, don't really know what we're doing, same old shit as usual. And Charles didn't have anything left. Though he'd once been a nobleman, he didn't really grab anything from the fire except his father's rapier and some silly nobleman paperwork that he deemed to be important. So, that meant no gold from him. Or did it? As we brainstormed what to do to get some cash fast, Charles got an idea. Maybe there was still something left in the ruins of his old manor. Even if the fire got to his family's reserves, gold is gold, even if it got, I don't know, melted or something. So off he went to go pilfer his own stuff, leaving the rest of us to think up a plan B, just in case someone else had gotten to the manor first. We were stumped. Tiffany was royally unhelpful, preferring to order himself a drink instead of saving his gold to save his sister. But instead of chewing him out like I really felt like doing, because man, who does that, Syl and I went and asked the tavern keeper what the best way to earn money around here was. His response? The Adventuring Guild! Yay! The Adventuring Guild apparently had plenty of things posted on their quest board. I don't know why none of us even thought of that, but with that in mind, the three of us set off to check out what quests they had posted. There were a couple of things that seemed really fucking hard and terrifying, and a lot of things that were basically just busy work for barely anything in return. But after a moment of searching, there it was. Our quest! One that didn't seem too daunting, but offered a promising reward of some amount of gold that I've entirely forgotten. It was a quest to explore and map a new sector of a previously explored and mapped dungeon. Apparently, a secret door had been uncovered, and anyone who could bring back a map of the new wing of the dungeon was to be rewarded handsomely. Or, well, at least enough for all of us to catch an airship to where we needed to go. Convenient. So, with the quest in mind, we headed back to the tavern to find Charles and reassure him that we didn't abandon him and we did remember him, even though he didn't bring us back any money. And with our party regrouped, we set off for the dungeon. The plan was this. We'd go in. Tiffany, being an experienced fighter, would handle most of the fighting, with Charles to back him up with his rapier. Syl and I would support the best we could with our magic, but our main priority would be getting to the secret door, exploring what we found inside, and getting the hell out of there unscathed. Mostly. Hopefully. After a few hours worth of walking, we finally made it to the entrance of the dungeon, the gaping maw of a dark, damp cavern. This was it. None of us knew what we'd find once inside, but regardless of any fear, concern, or worry, we had to do this. For John.
Goodness, I sure hope my lack of license doesn't impact our pay at all.
A what?
A license? An adventuring license. The license we need to take quests. And get paid for them.
A what?
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
Okay, so maybe we didn't have licenses, and maybe Syl and I didn't really even realize we needed licenses, but I am choosing to blame Tiffany and Charles for just assuming that we had them. But we'd already walked like 3 hours to get to this goddamn dungeon, so it was too late now because none of us particularly wanted to walk all the way back, jump through the hoops to get a license, walk back, go through a whole dungeon, walk back again, so on and so forth. So we kinda just figured that if we brought them the map, we could jump through all the hoops when we actually get back. Simple, right? Right? So, now that we were all sufficiently concerned and disoriented and thrown off our groove, it was as good of a time as ever to actually enter the dungeon. So, in we went. For the first little while, it was actually fairly boring. Since the dungeon had already been explored and cleared out, everything was kind of empty. So we just wandered and looked around for any secret doors, and it got so boring that it was all kind of a blur. A lot of cave, a lot of empty, already looted rooms, something about some skeleton named Mr. Jangles the Bone Man. I think Tiffany beat the marrow out of him or something, but I couldn't tell you for sure. All I remember is that once we got to the secret door, things got a whole lot more interesting. Having finally made our way deep enough into the desolate dungeon to find the door, we stood before it, unsure of what lay behind it, but preparing ourselves for the possibilities. Sure, it could be just a couple of goblins, but it could also be something much, much worse. Maybe a whole swarm of goblins. Maybe a portal to the abyss full of ravenous demons. Maybe some grand cosmic horror having laid undisturbed for thousands of years, just waiting for an unfortunate adventuring party to stumble across it and set it free from its... probably not that. But what can I say? The unknown is scary. But we needed to press forward, so without further ado, we cracked the door open, fully expecting an entire horde of monsters and nasties to come barreling out at us. But none of that happened. Instead of the atrocities we were imagining, we were instead met with well, I didn't really know what the hell it was at the time, since I'd never seen anything like it, but it was what I now know is a waiting room. There was a polished wooden desk at the back of the room with a little sign that read, "On lunch." No creature to be seen, no person, nor monster, nor receptionist. So, not exactly what we were expecting. We all inspected the room, all of us confused out of our minds. There were a few very comfortable-looking seats with a rather short table before them, with these thin booklets spread across them. Magazines, I later learned. Tiffany seemed to take a particular interest in one of these magazines. I barely got a glimpse at the cover, but I think it said something like, "Fancy footwork?" Anyways, unimportant details, because what was most interesting were the 3 doors in the back of the room, each of which we'd have to explore if we wanted to fully map this place out. So, with much less apprehension than before, Syl and I went to investigate the first door all the way to the left. I grabbed the handle, ready to turn it and face whatever curiosity would meet me on the other side, but the fucking door tried to bite me! As it turns out, mimics are a thing, and they get very unhappy when you get too handsy. As I'd grasped the handle, the door split down the middle, revealing row after row of sharp, gnashing teeth, some of them even longer than my damn fingers. Thankfully, we didn't have to fight it, as it seemed to be stuck in place. But by the moons, that thing sure was pissed. Distressed, even. I honestly felt kind of bad, but, well, there wasn't much I could do except offer a quick apology. It's not like I could ungrab the thing. So, great, door 1 sucked. Back to being apprehensive, Syl and I tried the second door, poking it a few times first to make sure it wouldn't get feisty like the first door. And, I really wish we hadn't opened the second door. Instead of nearly getting bitten, we were nearly trampled by dozens and dozens of feet. Not attached to much of anything, just feet, clusters of them. Just feet and legs, all sort of connected in the middle like a sea urchin, but each spine was a leg that ended in a surprisingly dainty humanoid foot. Several of these creatures came barreling out at us, and Syl and I were lucky enough to manage to get out of the way in time, but Tiffany wasn't so lucky. Within moments, the big, scary murderer that I thought would be our main line of defense had crumpled to the ground, and I started preparing a spell to try and ward the monsters off, or even take a few of them down if need be. But, how do I put this? He looked like he was doing just fine. A little too fine for being trampled, and stepped on. And yeah, okay, we're just gonna leave him there. Anyways, not wanting to watch that happen anymore, Syl, Charles, and I quickly yanked open the third door, more than relieved to find what just appeared to be a very long hallway behind it, and we hurried down it to escape the noises of what we'd left behind. And stupidly, in our haste, we'd failed to watch our step. One of us, I'm not sure who, but it doesn't really matter, had stepped on just the wrong tile, nearly indistinguishable from all the others, but just different enough to catch the eye of those who actually paid attention. Which was none of us, because we had all just gotten the ick from the last room and we really wanted out of there. Of course, that mistake would prove to have grave consequences. The thunderous sound of something falling behind us was nearly enough to shake the ground, and the actual impact of the thing actually did shake the ground. And as we looked back, we found the culprit of the noise. A giant fucking boulder hurtling at us at record-breaking speeds. Holy shit. Obviously, the only thing we could do was run, and so we fucking ran. The hallway was terrifyingly long, with nowhere to duck into or hide or anything. We bolted like our lives depended on it, because they did, and it felt like we were running for ages before we finally saw something. At the end of the hallway lied a deep pit, but also a turn right before it. Another hallway. Finally, something we could duck into to escape the boulder that bore down on us, inching closer and closer with every passing second. I made the turn. Sylvaeus made the turn. Charles did not. I'm not sure what happened. I couldn't tell if he'd slipped or if he was simply running too fast to change direction so suddenly, but either way, he didn't make it, and I turned just in time to watch him slip down the giant chasm that lay at the end of the hallway we'd just come from. And then the boulder fell down after him. Oh my god. Charles is fucking dead! It was at this point I started to realize exactly how dangerous of a situation we were in. I'd never stepped hoof in a dungeon before, and I had been lulled into a false sense of security, thinking that if the dungeon had been explored and cleared out, that it would be somewhat safe. That all the big things were taken care of, and that we'd be able to go in, explore, and come back out and get some money for it. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. And my friend had paid the ultimate price for my stupidity. And that's where we're gonna leave it off for this video. This episode was certainly very fun, and many good things happened, and it wasn't distressing at all. Woo! At least with Charles probably definitely dead, and John on her way to be probably definitely dead, there's a lot of room for improvement. Ha 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 ha. Anyways, if you enjoyed this session story time and want to see where it goes from here, like and subscribe or something like that, but most of all, comment if there's anything you particularly liked or would love to see. Talking to you guys is my favorite part of this whole content creation thingy-majiggy, so please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know what you'd like to see from me. Alright, remember to take care of yourselves, everyone. Have a great day, and I can't wait to see you all next time. Bye!